Have you ever thought of making sushi but been daunted by the process of having to cook the perfect rice and then roll it in the nori and all the toppings and all of that? Well, meet Chirashi Zushi, which means scattered sushi, where you have a layer of sushi rice on the bottom and then all the toppings thrown on the top, and then you just scoop it out in a bowl or on a plate, eat it with some chopsticks or even a fork. It's a great potluck item, it's a great party favorite, and it's simple to make. So welcome to the Vegan Good Life with Miyoko. And today's episode and next week's episode, next week's episode, if I can pronounce that correctly, we're going to do a couple of easy, simple, favorite Japanese dishes of mine. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to show you how to make some toppings, how to cook the rice, and Chirashi Zushi. Away we go. The first thing we're going to do is cook the rice. This is, to the Japanese, a sacred act. Now, if you think about it, it's like pasta to the Italians. Rice is a wondrous thing. It's something that provides me with a lot of comfort. But how do you make rice last for many days? In the days before you had refrigeration, well, you put vinegar and sugar and salt, which are both all preservatives. And that is one reason sushi was invented, so that you could keep rice for many days. Now, we're going to start by washing the rice. And the kind of rice you use for sushi is of utmost importance. You're going to want to use a Japanese-style rice, which is either a medium grain or a short grain rice. And I have a really special rice. This is called Haiga rice, which is a rice that is not brown rice. It's been polished only in part, leaving the endosperm or the germ, the rice germ, attached. So it has all the nutrition of brown rice without the, the sort of funky hippie flavor of brown rice. If you don't like it, you want something more refined, Haiga rice is the perfect rice for you. If you were to work at a sushi restaurant as an apprentice, all you would do for the first 2 years is learn how to cook the perfect rice. Not in a rice cooker, but in some sort of big crock. And that's what we're using today. I've got a old-fashioned Japanese ceramic crock. I don't know what you would call this. This is called a donabe in Japanese. And it means it's a pot made out of clay. Now, you can use a rice cooker, no problem. But this is what I cook my rice in every single day. And it makes superb rice. So let's get started with the first part of the sacred act of making rice, which is rinsing it. Now, for sushi rice, you want to leave a little bit al dente in texture because it's going to absorb the sweet vinegar that we're going to add to it. We're just going to rinse it once or twice just to get rid of some of the starch there. But we don't need to make sure that the water runs clear. And the ratio of water to rice is the same volumetrically. So every cup of rice, you're going to add a cup of water for sushi rice, which is a little bit less water than you would normally use, but we want the rice to be firm. Now, the way I learned to cook rice is you put in a knuckle above the rice. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to pour a little bit out because I want it to be a little hard. And that's it. Now we're going to put it on the stove. We're turning it on high. We're going to bring it to a boil, and then we're going to turn it down to the lowest possible heat. And we don't raise the lid, even if the baby screams. All right, we're going to make the vinegar so we can give it a little bit of time to cool off. And I'm going to add about 2/3 cup of rice wine vinegar, a half a cup of sugar, and about a tablespoon of sea salt. And we're just going to cook this for a minute and allow the salt and the sugar to dissolve before we add it to the rice. I'm actually going to add a little more vinegar. So it's about a cup of vinegar. Okay, this is ready when you no longer see grains of sugar or salt. So this is about ready. I'm going to turn it off now, and we're just going to let it cool while the rice finishes cooking. While the rice is cooking and the sushi vinegar is cooling down, we're going to prepare the vegetables and tofu and things that we're going to put on top of the sushi. Now, this is not a set recipe. These are ideas. So you can go crazy and come up with your own toppings for the sushi rice. But I'm going to start out by cooking this ginger eggplant that I love so much. So I've got an eggplant. This is all I could get was a globe eggplant, but I definitely encourage you to try to get a Japanese eggplants or Italian eggplants, which are smaller. They are not as bitter and they don't have as many seeds. Typically, you would salt and let this dry, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that because of the way we're going to prepare it. So what I'm going to do is slice these. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller, actually. But I'm going to just score them really lightly. And these are pretty big pieces, so I'm going to actually cut them in half. This might even be thirds. It's not an exact science. You can, with the Japanese eggplants or the Italian eggplants, they just look nicer because they're not quite as big as this. All right, so I'm going to cook these in my trusty cast iron skillet. And we're going to cook everything in there. And the one pot that I made the sushi vinegar in, because you know how I hate cleanup, and I just want to minimize the number of implements that I use. Okay, so we're going to start by cooking this in my cast iron pot over there. I'm going to add a little bit of neutral oil. This is avocado oil. And then for flavor, I'm going to add some sesame oil. And get that nice and hot. Then we're going to add the eggplant. Let them brown really nicely on both sides before you add the other seasonings. So let's see. That's more like it. All right, we're going to get these babies down nice and flat and let them cook on both sides. Move them around a little bit so I can get them all in here. The rice has come to a boil, so I'm going to turn it down. And that needs about 12 more minutes or so. All right, so while these guys are cooking, let's prep all of the other vegetables so we can cook them one after the other. We're going to start out with some extra firm tofu, and I want the extra firm because I want this to be kind of chewy and meaty. It's going to go in the pan right after the eggplant. All right, let's do some carrots. Cucumbers. I've got a couple different kinds of mushrooms here. Actually, I've got three kinds of mushrooms. I've got king trumpet. These are beach mushrooms, and I've got some shiitake mushrooms here. So we're going to slice these up as well, too. All right, I'm going to take the stems off the fresh shiitake. We're going to slice these up. And the beach mushrooms, we'll just break these up like that. And finally, we're going to cook some yuba, which is the skin that forms on soy milk when you heat it. And it's these sheets. They do sell this now in grocery stores, in natural food stores, but you can also get a frozen kind that's available in typical Asian grocery stores. So it kind of has an eggy texture. So we're going to kind of boil this with a little bit of black salt and kind of give it an eggy flavor. Super easy, and there'll be kind of shreds of egg. You want to take these apart. Alrighty, it's time to check on the eggplant. So I'm grating some ginger using a Japanese ginger grater. It looks like this. And after you grate here, you push it down here, but you can use a microplane. You can use any other utensil you typically use, implement you typically use to grate ginger. I happen to have a couple of these. I'm going to finish it off right here. My eggplant looks just beautiful. So now we're ready to season it. And we're going to season it with some soy sauce. So in goes the soy sauce. And some mirin, which is sweet sake. And some ginger. Oh my God, they look so delicious. Look at that. And we'll just let that simmer for a minute, and then we're going to pull that out and put the tofu right into that pan. Okay, that's ready. I'm going to pull these out. And without washing this or anything, I'm going to add the tofu directly to this pan. Okay, now there's a bunch of stuff stuck on the bottom of that pan. I'm going to lift it off by deglazing the pan, adding some water, and that's going to lift all that wonderful flavor from the eggplant. And we're just going to let that simmer for a minute. If you think you need a little bit more soy sauce and meating, you can add that. We're going to wait until the tofu has absorbed most of this and turned a beautiful devilish brown. Now I'm going to cook the yuba in this pot of boiling water. I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of meating, and a little bit of black salt, which is a salt with sulfur in it, and gives it a little bit of that eggy flavor. It dissipates when it's exposed to heat, so you want to just cook this very, very quickly. All right, it's come to a boil and now it's ready. So I'm going to drain this. Or I can just use tongs too. And it's lightly flavored, it's delicate, it's got this wonderful, wonderful texture. Oh, there's a mushroom in there. And because I like to make life easy for myself, I'm going to just cook the carrots in here very briefly, just to tenderize them slightly. All right, the chef shall try the tofu. Delicious. Chewy, salty, a little bit sweet. I'm just going to finish it off with a splash of sesame oil and then pull it out of the pan. And finally, we're going to cook the mushrooms in there. This time I'm going to add a little bit of sesame oil, and then we're going to pour water in it just to lift all those wonderful flavors. I'm starting out with the king trumpet mushrooms. Now I'll add the other mushrooms. I just brought the carrots to a boil, and I want them to have that slight crunch. I want them to be nice and firm. I don't want them mushy. So I'm turning it off now, and I'm going to drain them. Okay, once again, I'm going to add some water to this to deglaze the pan. It'll lift all those lovely flavors, infuse the mushrooms with that, and then we're going to be able to make our sushi rice. We're ready to make the magic happen. So here's the rice. Oh, it's perfectly cooked. And here's something else that I'll tell you. In Japan, you would never serve rice just scooping it out. You have to fluff up your rice first. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of stirring it and fluffing it up, not smashing it, but kind of lifting it and breaking it up into chunks. Now we're going to put it in here. I can't remember what it's called, but this is a typical dish that you would serve sushi in. And for Chirashi Zushi, where you don't roll the sushi and it's just all served in this container, it's an easy way not only to make the sushi rice, but to serve the sushi rice. Okay, now I've got my sushi rice in here. I'm going to just make sure that I don't have chunks. And typically in Japan, you'd have somebody fanning the rice while you're putting the vinegar in. I'm not going to do that. Now I've got the vinegar. It's cool, and I'm going to start adding it as I stir. And you're going to go through this period where the rice looks really wet from the vinegar, and then it's going to absorb it. So right now it looks pretty wet and you think like you can't add any more, but you can. That vinegar is just filling my nostrils and I'm getting hungry. And you may want to taste it to see, do I have enough vinegar in it? Do I want a little bit more? I'm going to do that right now. That is good. I don't think, I'm going to add just a splash more and then we're done. All right. And now ready to put the toppings on. So I want to just spread this out so it fills the dish. I think I'll start with the tofu. Now the eggplant. All right, let's do mushrooms. So far it's pretty brown and we're going to start adding some colors. All right, we'll add the yuba. We'll get the carrots on there. The fresh cucumber. And some lovely ripe avocado. And the very final thing we're going to add are shreds of nori. So I've got some nori here, and I'm going to just fold this into thirds, like this. Then I can hopefully break it. Now I'm going to take a pair of clean kitchen scissors and we're just going to cut little shreds of nori to put on top. Now, if you're taking this to a potluck, you want to make sure that you do the nori at the very, very last minute before you serve it, because it will wilt. So you can shred it, put it in a little container or a plastic bag to keep it from getting humid from wilting. And then you can just sprinkle it on your dish right before you put it out. And your Chirashi Zushi is ready. I cannot wait to taste it. So I'm just going to go in. As you can see, I got the rice on the bottom, all the lovely toppings on the top. Oh my God, that looks so good. All right, let me take a bite and see how it is. I got some tofu. Let me try the yuba. Lovely, lovely, lovely. All right, well, I'm going to be eating away. And I've got some guests here. So we're going to be serving them the sushi rice. It's funny, I'm seeing a reflection of a cow in the window. So I know that Angel the cow is somewhere out there. So, but I'm not going to share this with her because she would eat it. All right, well, everyone, thanks again for joining in another episode of The Vegan Good Life with Miyoko. If you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.